Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are new here, my name is Sophie Waddington and I talk about all things manifestation and mindset on this channel. So if you're not already subscribing, please remember to subscribe, like this video, leave me a comment, and if you're listening on the podcast, leave me an Apple review and I will be eternally grateful. Just a reminder before we start that you can come and join my membership Empowered as Fuck, where we do more of this type of stuff. We go further in depth on the law of assumption, on manifestation. It's the most amazing community and I can't wait to see you in there. So I will leave the link down below to come and join us. So this week I had a session with my incredible coach whose information I will leave on the screen for you to go and follow. And I was focusing in that session on how I wanted to expand this business and grow my audience, be able to have a greater impact, be able to have a more expansive life off the back of the work that I do. And she helped me to do some digging around what it is that's holding me back. And for me, there's certain patterns that come up in my life on repeat, and they tend to be things like procrastination, a lack of consistency, all or nothing mindset where I have real bursts of inspiration and loads of productivity and then nothing for several weeks, sometimes several months. And I really wanted to uncover what was going on there because, in order to experience the vision that I hold for my business, those things need to be addressed. So, after some digging, I came to the conclusion with her help that this was down to a lack of trust in myself. And that lack of trust has been a really firm part of my identity for a very long time. And it's something that has just been running in the background that I've not really been aware of up until now. And now that I have that awareness, I can overcome it and change that part of my identity. So while I am doing that, I wanted to share it with you as well, because this is something that affects so many people and it keeps us playing small and playing safe when we could have so much more. We could have so much more life, so much more experience, so much more money, so much more impact, and just so much more enjoyment out of our lives. So, we're going to go through the three main ways that this can show up in your life and the three ways to overcome that. But before I share those with you, I also want to just say to anybody who has been listening to this podcast for a long time, maybe you've been here for the whole 4 years, thank you so much for being here. If you are new here and you are just joining us now, you are so welcome. And I'm so glad that you are here and that you've found us. This podcast for the past 4 years has been very much based on manifestation. And although that is always going to be the central theme of Empower State, I also really feel drawn to bringing in a lot more mindset content for you because I want to leave you with some real practical tools that you can go and use immediately in your life and immediately see the benefits from them. So I just wanted to put that out there, and it feels a little bit strange to say that because I have talked about nothing but manifestation for the past 4 years, and I'm branching out just a little bit, not too far, but I'm branching out a little bit into mindset content as well. So you can expect more of that from this channel too. A huge part of why you are not pursuing your biggest goals, going bigger in your life, making the positive changes that you know would be so beneficial for you is because of a lack of trust in yourself. And when I say that, you might not immediately resonate with it. Maybe you think, yeah, I totally trust myself. But the thing about this part of our identity is that it's very sneaky, and the way that it shows up can masquerade as other things. So I'm going to share with you three of many ways that it does show up in people's lives. The first one is seeking assurance, which means that before you make a decision, you feel the need to consult other people about that decision. So, that decision about your life, you have to ask your parents, your friends, your family, your colleagues. You're constantly looking for somebody outside of you to either validate your decision or even worse, make the decision for you. So you might hear yourself saying, "Oh, what do you think about this?" Or "What would you do if it was you?" And following the lead of other people. Sometimes this also shows up as feeling the need to over explain or rationalize a decision that you have made. So you're almost speaking it out loud and sort of saying, "Oh, well, this is the reason why. And it's a good idea because if I do this, da 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 da," when people haven't even actually asked you to explain. You don't owe anybody an explanation, but if you find yourself over explaining, then that's a really big sign that you have a lack of trust in yourself. When you do this, not only are you fatigued by the constant analysis of going over and over the question in your mind, you might be thinking about something for days or weeks or even months before you actually make the decision, and that can feel completely exhausting. But also, energetically, you're saying, "I'm not qualified to make this decision. I don't trust myself to make the right choice for this decision that needs to be made about my life." The second way that this lack of trust in ourselves can show up is when we avoid change or we avoid any kind of challenge. So, this is something that you see quite commonly in a workplace setting. And let's imagine, for example, that you have worked at your workplace 15 years, you are completely competent in that role, it does not challenge you in the slightest. You go above and beyond what you are paid to do. People come to you for advice. You are a trustworthy employee who is very, very capable at their job. And then a promotion comes up at work and everybody's pushing you to go for it and saying, "Why don't you apply?" And you automatically say, "No, I'm not applying for that. I can't do that." And you're not even allowing yourself to consider the possibility that maybe you would enjoy it, or maybe this would be a really beneficial move for you. Maybe it would give you more money, more time freedom, more influence, more power, more flexibility, more creativity. You immediately disqualify yourself from even thinking about it because you don't trust yourself to do more than what you already know, what's already in your safe comfort zone. And it's not just inside the workplace, you see this with people every single day, people who really heavily rely on routines and find it very difficult to stray from them can sometimes be from a lack of trust in themselves. It might be somebody wears the same sorts of clothes. Maybe somebody would never try a different route to work in case they got lost. It might even be that you wear the same makeup that you have worn for 20 or 30 years. Hands up if you, if you are still wearing Estee Lauder double wear because that's what your mum wore and that's what you've always worn. So that lack of flexibility and willingness to try something new, to try changing something, to try a new challenge can be down to a lack of trust in yourself. And the third way that this often shows up in people's lives, and this is the one that gets me every single time, I am the queen of it, not anymore, I was the queen of it, is procrastination. And procrastination in itself is really sneaky because it doesn't always show up as just putting things off. It can come up in other more creative, palatable ways, like being a perfectionist, having to redraft and change and tweak things before you'll actually release it out into the world. Planning things, over the top planning, making lists, researching, over consuming content on something before actually taking action on it, reading 55 self-development books and not actually putting anything into practice, listening to podcast after podcast after podcast and not putting the takeaways into action. Procrastination can warp your sense of prioritization, so it can make you think that there are more important things to do than that one thing that you really want to do. This is exactly how procrastination shows up in my life. Suddenly, when I need to do something that I know is going to expand my business, I will have an overwhelming urge to go and buy something, or I'll have an overwhelming urge to suddenly clean the skirting boards that I've previously ignored. for several years. So that procrastination is coming out in a warped sense of priority. It's convincing you that you can do that later on and that there's more important things to do right now. So, those are the three main ways that it can show up in your life: seeking reassurance, avoiding change or challenges, and procrastination. So, now that we have brought some awareness to how it might be showing up in your life, I want to take you through the three ways that you can overcome this feeling of a lack of trust in yourself. And first of all, we're going to start off with identity. Identity is always what drives behavior. It's the reason that I have struggled with procrastination. It's the reason that you might seek validation from others. It's always the reason. So I really want you to start off by looking at what you identify with. For me, I always would say, I always procrastinate, I always procrastinate, I always procrastinate. That became a part of my identity, partly because of things that had shaped my identity during my childhood and my younger years, but also because I continuously affirmed that I was scatty and that I was inconsistent and that I was flaky and that I procrastinated. So, we are first going to start by stopping associating with any types of behaviours that we don't want to continue experiencing. When we change the identity first, the behaviours follow. It becomes much easier to change the behaviours because they are no longer following on from an identity that doesn't serve you. Now, you may have resonated with all three of those ways, or maybe you resonated with one in particular. So, we'll look at each of those and work through how we can overcome those behaviours and those thought patterns. The first one being seeking reassurance. So, constantly looking for somebody outside of you to validate or make a decision about your life. I want to remind you that as humans, we have an inbuilt guidance system called intuition. Intuition is not something that's woo woo or made up, it's an inner knowing that the rest of the animal kingdom use instinctively. And because we are more advanced and we're able to think logically and rationalize things and go through things in our mind, we have become disconnected from our intuition. We always already have the answers inside of us that we need. And at any point, we can tap into that guidance system and use it to help us make decisions about our life. So, something that I would really like you to practice this week is tuning in to what it feels like in your body when something is a fuck yes and what it feels like when it's a fuck no. Because the clearer that intuition gets, the louder the yes or no will become. For some people, they feel it in the chest, some people feel it as a tingling sensation, but your body will give you a specific cue that means yes or no. And you've got to start listening to that and following it in order to create a stronger connection with it. Once you have your intuition and you have that connection to your intuition, you are not going to make any decisions that are wrong. I personally don't think that you can make wrong decisions anyway, because even if that doesn't lead you to the outcome that you desire, it teaches you some kind of lesson that you need to learn. It gives you opportunity for growth. You are always going to come back to the right path either way. But when you are using your intuition, you're going to get to your desired state a lot faster, because logic is something very human and you are so far beyond just being a human. So, tapping into your intuition, learning what it feels like to you for a yes and a no, and using that in everyday life is going to help you dramatically. Start to use it on the smaller things so that it builds your confidence to be able to use it when you're making bigger decisions. And in addition to using your intuition, I also want you to step into that identity of somebody who confidently makes decisions. So that could be that when you're in the group chat and everybody's trying to meet up and decide what they're going to do and when they're going to meet, you are the person who suggests the time, who suggests the location, and arranges for it to happen. You are the leader of the group. When you're in a restaurant and you're ordering the food, don't wait for everybody else to order theirs until you make your decision. Be the first person to order and be definite in your choice. Become more aware of when you are looking outside of yourself for help with a decision, whether that's to another person in your family, one of your friends, one of your colleagues. Really become aware of that behavior and stop yourself in your tracks and remind yourself that you already have your intuition. You don't need to ask anybody else. You don't need any permission from anyone else. You are the only person who is qualified to make decisions about your life. If you resonated with the part where you avoid change or avoid challenges, for the next week, I want you to imagine that you are Jim Carrey in the film Yes Man, and you are saying yes to all of the opportunities and all of the challenges that come your way. Now, I also want to caveat that by saying it's important that you learn the difference between being open to change and being a people pleaser. Being the yes man that I want you to try out this week does not mean people pleasing. You've got to be able to differentiate between being offered an opportunity or a challenge and saying, I don't want to do this because it doesn't interest me, and I want to do this, but, and then all of those reasons why you can't do it, because I'm not qualified, because I'm too old, because of this, because of that. So get really clear on the difference between those two. And when you are clear, start saying yes to things. Let go of the but at the end of the sentence and just say yes. In addition to that, notice where you do the same things every day in, day out. When you wear the same makeup, when you wear the same outfits, when you drive the same route, when you eat the same lunch. And I'm laughing at that one because while I was writing my podcast notes for this episode, I actually realized that I was doing exactly that. I was sat in my favorite cafe at the favorite table. I was eating my favorite meal and I was drinking my favorite cup of coffee and doing all of those things exactly the same. Even though I'd looked at the menu for 5 minutes and seen all the other amazing things on there, I still went back to the same thing. So become aware of when you are doing everything the same and start to intentionally change that, even in the little things. Because when you change something, it builds new neural pathways in your brain and it allows you to become more expansive and stop going round in the same loops and only experiencing the same life. And finally, procrastination, the one that shows up for most of us when we have a lack of trust in ourselves. For the next week, I want you to choose the task or tasks that you want to accomplish that you have been procrastinating on. And I want you to set a timer for no more than 10 minutes, and it can be less than 10 minutes if you want to. So, no more than 10 minutes, you're going to set a timer and you are going to commit to focusing solely on that task, no matter what. It doesn't matter what else needs to be done. You are going to spend 10 minutes doing that task. And when I say doing it, I don't mean planning it. I don't mean researching it. I don't mean making a list about it, preparing for it. I mean actually diving in and taking messy action, no matter what that looks like, no matter whether you feel like you're ready to take the action. We're just going to set the timer for 10 minutes and go all in on taking that action. You're going to release all need for it to be perfect, all need for it to be polished, and we're just going to do it. And it's really important that you don't set your target to be more than 10 minutes for your focused task work. And the reason for that is the very best way to overcome a lack of trust in yourself is to do what you said you were going to do. When you do what you said you were going to do, you build trust in yourself, you build confidence. And when you build that trust and confidence, you will automatically go for bigger, better things in your life. Don't be put off by the idea of doing 10 minutes on something. If you get to the end of the 10 minutes and you decide that you want to continue, which is very likely to happen because you've already started the momentum of that task, that's fine. But I don't want you to set yourself a goal to work on something for 20 minutes or half an hour or 1 hour or 2 hours, because what will happen is your attention will run out and then you will feel even worse about that thing, and that will solidify the fact that you can't trust yourself because you've not done what you were said you were going to do. So the smaller that you can make the goal, the task, the time that you're focusing on something, the better. Because even if you have a day where you cannot be asked doing more than 10 minutes of something, it doesn't matter. Your mind is recognizing that you said you were going to do that thing and you did it. Alongside affirming the new identity, you are going to shift that pattern of behavior very, very quickly. This is such a powerful way to overcome that procrastination and rid yourself of that part of your identity that says, I can't trust myself to hold more. Where most people go wrong is they set themselves a target out of panic and try so hard to achieve this very overwhelming task. I'm going to go to the gym every single day. I'm going to eat perfectly. I'm going to finish writing that whole book by the end of the month. And that really does not help you to overcome that, because you are only solidifying that identity of, I don't trust myself, I don't follow through on the things that I say I'm going to do. You are setting yourself up for a deeper lack of trust in yourself when you do that. So no matter what the task is, if you want to start walking, if you need to clean your house, if you need to go for a run, if you need to write a book, if you need to finish an assignment, it doesn't matter what it is. You're going to set yourself that timer for 10 minutes and you are going to do focused work for no more than 10 minutes, 5 minutes if you need to. 3 minutes, if that's all you've got, that's absolutely fine. It's not about the time, it's not even about completing the task, it's about doing what you said you would do. So I really hope that you found this episode useful, this video useful. If you have, please remember to subscribe to this channel for plenty more content like this. Thank you so much for listening. And another reminder that you can come and join Empowered as Fuck at any time. There's no contract. You can come and join us for the month and see if it's your vibe. And I will see you in there. Have a fantastic week and I'll see you soon.